One wrong move dividing a perennial this month can kill it, or cost you every single bloom it would have given you next year. Here is exactly which perennials you should divide right now, which ones need to wait, and which ones will die if you ever divide them at all. If you would rather get this right the first time than lose a plant to bad timing, go ahead and subscribe right now. This channel breaks down a new perennial topic every single week. Here is why this even matters. As a perennial clump ages, the center starts to die out. Old growth, tired soil, and compaction all build up right in the middle, while the healthy new growth keeps pushing outward toward the edges. Eventually, you end up with a dead patch surrounded by a ring of crowded, competing growth, almost like a donut. That crowding cuts off light, air, and nutrients right where the plant needs them most, and it only gets worse the longer you leave it, because the crowded outer ring starts competing with itself too. There are 5 signs worth checking against your own garden right now. Smaller or fewer flowers than usual. An overall loss of vigor. The plant just looks tired even though nothing is technically wrong with it. Stems flopping over that used to stand up fine on their own. A visibly dead or bald patch right in the center, and getting sick more often than it used to, since a stressed, crowded plant has a much harder time fighting off disease than a healthy one does. You only need 2 of these to be true before dividing is genuinely worth doing. You do not need to wait until the plant looks like it is in real trouble. Now, the actual rule for timing, and this is the part almost everyone gets wrong. Perennials that bloom in spring or early summer get divided in late summer or fall, once they have stopped putting energy into flowers and shifted towards storing energy in their roots instead. Perennials that bloom in late summer or fall get divided the opposite way in early spring, before they have committed that energy to blooming. The logic is the same either direction. You always want to divide a plant after it has finished the hardest part of its work, and before it starts the next round, never in the middle of either one. If you are dividing in fall specifically, aim for roughly 4 to 6 weeks before the first hard freeze, so the roots have time to settle into soil that is still warm enough to support them. Divide too close to that freeze, and the roots never get the chance to establish before winter locks everything down, which leaves the plant vulnerable going into spring. Keep that rule in mind, it is the framework behind everything on this list. Every single plant coming up gets sorted by that one question: has it finished the work it needs to do this season, or is it still in the middle of it? Bearded iris. This one is divided in late summer, roughly 6 to 8 weeks after it finishes flowering, which lands right about now. Lift the whole clump out of the ground and cut the rhizomes apart at their natural joints. You will actually feel where one segment ends and the next begins if you take your time. Only replant the young outer sections, about the width of a thumb, each with a healthy fan of leaves attached. The older leafless center gets thrown out entirely. It is spent and will not produce anything new no matter how good the rest of your care is. Cut the foliage back to about 1/3 or half its height before replanting. That cuts down on water loss while the roots are recovering underground and unable to keep up with what the full fan of leaves would otherwise demand. The rhizome itself sits flush with the soil surface, or just barely below it. Bury it any deeper and you are not protecting it. You are inviting bacterial soft rot instead of flowers, and that mistake alone is responsible for more failed iris beds than almost anything else. Do this every 3 to 5 years, and mark your calendar so you are not guessing next time. If you skip a cycle and the clump grows past that window, you will just end up with a larger, more crowded donut shape to deal with later, so it is worth staying on schedule rather than waiting until the plant forces the issue on its own. Daylilies, genuinely one of the toughest plants on this list, and a good one to practice on if division still feels intimidating. You can divide daylilies either in early spring or right now in late summer, once they have finished their bloom cycle for the season. Cut the fleshy crown apart with a sharp knife into sections, each one keeping a good chunk of root and at least a couple of growing points. Every 3 to 5 years is plenty. This plant forgives almost anything you throw at it, including a slightly rough cut or a section replanted a bit too shallow. Even a daylily division that gets a little dried out before it goes back in the ground tends to bounce back within the first season, which is not something you can count on with most of the plants further down this list. Hostas. You can divide hostas now in late summer, though early spring is actually the preferred window if you happen to have the choice, since the plant gets a full growing season to recover instead of heading straight into the fall slowdown. Slice the dense crown apart with a sharp spade or a heavy knife into individual sections, and water the new pieces in well right after planting, so the soil stays consistently moist while the roots settle. Every 3 to 5 years, and you will know it is time again once the center starts thinning out or the clump loses its full mounded shape it had in its first few seasons. Siberian iris. Do not confuse this with bearded iris. It is a completely different plant underground even though the name suggests otherwise. Siberian iris has a much deeper, denser fibrous root system, and it genuinely does not need frequent division at all compared to its bearded relative. Late summer, specifically August, is a valid window for it. Cut the tough foliage back to about 6 to 8 inches first. Then cut the root mass apart using a heavy soil knife or a sharp spade. This one takes more effort than bearded iris simply because the root system is so much denser. One thing worth knowing about this one, its deeper rhizomes actually make it naturally less prone to the iris borer that causes so much trouble for its bearded cousin. So if borers have been an issue in your beds, this is a good plant to lean on more heavily, coreopsis. Also called tickseed, this one has a spreading, fibrous root system, and it can genuinely be divided either in early spring or right now in late summer. Pull the clump apart by hand and discard the weak, tired center, keeping only the vigorous outer sections that still have plenty of healthy roots attached. Every 1 to 2 years, this plant simply exhausts itself faster than most of the others on this list. So more frequent division actually keeps it healthier and keeps the bloom count up rather than letting it decline year over year. Thyme spreads through fibrous, layered stems that root themselves as they touch the ground, which makes it one of the easiest plants on this whole list to divide. Mid-spring or fall both work, and you have some flexibility here that you will not get with plants like peonies. Simply pull apart rooted stem sections from the outer edge of the plant. Each one should already have its own small root system attached since it has been rooting into the soil as it spreads. Every 3 to 4 years, and honestly you will probably end up doing it more often just because the extra plants are useful to fill in gaps elsewhere in the bed. If this is already changing how you are looking at your own garden beds, take a second and subscribe. A new one drops every week. And drop a comment letting me know where you are gardening from. I like seeing how this plays out across different climates. Peonies deserve real attention here, because this is the plant most people get wrong, and getting it wrong does not just cost you a season, it can cost you years. Peonies should only be divided in September, not now. The reason is simple. By late summer, the plant has not yet stored its maximum food reserves, and it has not finished forming next year's buds either. Dividing too early interrupts both of those processes at once, which is exactly why a peony that gets divided in the wrong month can look perfectly fine and still refuse to bloom the following spring. When September comes, cut the foliage down to ground level and carefully wash the fleshy roots clean so you can actually see what you are working with. Dirt hides a lot of detail that matters here. Use a sharp knife to divide the crown into sections. Each one needs 3 to 5 dormant eyes and several thick, healthy roots attached. Fewer than that, and the new division has a much harder time getting established. The planting depth here is exact and completely unforgiving. Those eyes need to sit exactly 1.5 to 2 inches below the soil surface. Plant them any deeper, and the plant will often grow perfectly healthy green leaves for years and never produce a single flower, which is one of the more frustrating outcomes in gardening because everything looks fine on the surface while the real problem sits underground. Peonies are rarely divided at all. Some gardeners leave the same plant undisturbed for 50 years or more without a single issue. That patience is really the whole personality of this plant. It rewards being left alone far more than it rewards being fussed over. If you want new plants without disturbing the parent, there is a technique called the pie slice method. Cut and lift just a triangular wedge from the outer edge of the established clump, digging at least 8 inches deep to capture the roots properly, since peony roots run deeper than most gardeners expect. Divide that single wedge into its own 3 to 5 eye sections, and the rest of the plant stays completely undisturbed in the ground, still doing exactly what it was already doing. New peony divisions want 3 to 4 feet of spacing, since a mature plant fills out considerably more than it looks like it will when you first plant it. Add a layer of straw or pine needle mulch, 4 to 6 inches deep, applied in late November to prevent frost heaving over winter, which is when repeated freezing and thawing pushes the crown up out of the soil and exposes those eyes to cold air. Remove that mulch again in early spring before new growth starts. Leaving it on too long can actually smother the emerging shoots. A few others worth flagging for later this fall rather than right now. Heuchera has a real fall window once temperatures cool down further. Its shallow root system does not handle the stress of a late summer division nearly as well as bearded iris does. And while coreopsis and thyme both have flexibility to be divided right now as covered above, they also have valid fall windows if you would rather spread the work out across the season instead of doing everything at once in late summer. This is the part worth paying close attention to, because these mistakes are not small setbacks, they are often fatal, and there is no fixing a plant once you have made one of them. Taproot plants first. Lupin, butterfly weed, oriental poppy, baby's breath, false indigo, and gas plant all rely on one single, deep taproot as their entire water and energy highway. These plants cannot regrow roots from a severed piece the way a fibrous-rooted plant can. There is simply no mechanism for it. Cutting into that taproot causes air pockets to form inside the plant's own vascular tissue, and that damage opens the door to rot that usually finishes the job within a season or two. There is one genuine exception worth knowing. Evening primrose has a taproot too, but it also spreads through shallow side shoots that form their own new rosettes nearby. You can sever just those small offshoots with a sharp knife without ever disturbing the parent plant's actual taproot underneath. which makes it the one plant in this whole category where you can safely get new plants without any real risk. Every other plant on this taproot list, though, is genuinely a one-shot deal if you want more of them. Growing from seed is the reliable path, not the shovel. Woody subshrubs are the second group. Lavender, rosemary, candytuft, and Russian sage all grow from a single woody stem, with no underground rhizomes to split at all. There is simply nothing down there to divide even if you wanted to. Cutting into that woody crown tears straight through the tissue that actually moves water and nutrients through the plant, and that kind of damage does not heal the way a clean cut through a fleshy rhizome does. Old woody growth like this generally will not produce new buds either, so even if you did divide it, the division would likely just fail outright rather than root and establish. The right move here is propagating through cuttings or layering instead, bending a low, flexible branch down to the ground, lightly wounding the underside where it touches soil, then letting it root while it is still attached to and supported by the parent plant. Lavender and Russian sage in particular tend to develop bare, leggy centers if you never do anything to manage them, and a light yearly trim of the soft new growth, rather than any attempt to cut into the old wood, is really the substitute for division with this whole group. The third group is the one people are most surprised by, plants that simply never need dividing at all. Blue star, wild columbine, blazing star, Lenten rose, goat's beard, barrenwort, and Japanese anemone all build such an extensive, deeply integrated root network over the years that digging into them causes more harm than any division could possibly be worth. Blue star in particular develops an almost woody root base over time that resists disturbance the same way the subshrubs above do. Japanese anemone actually spreads on its own through underground runners, so if you want more plants, you are usually better off transplanting a young runner from the edge of the colony rather than digging into the established clump at all. Lenten rose and goat's beard both resent root disturbance so strongly that even a survived division attempt can set the plant back for several years before it looks like itself again. These are the plants where the best care is genuinely just leaving them alone and letting the years do the work for you. While you are dividing bearded iris specifically, this is actually your best window to catch a real problem before it spreads any further through the bed. Inspect every single rhizome as you go. If any section feels soft, spongy, or hollow, or gives off a foul smell, that is bacterial soft rot, and it is usually caused by iris borer larvae that tunneled in earlier in the season and left an opening for the bacteria to move in behind them. Cut that section away completely and destroy it, never replant it, and never toss it on the compost pile either, since that just moves the problem somewhere else in your yard. Disinfect your cutting tool between every single cut too, not just between plants. A simple 10% bleach solution works fine, since a contaminated blade will happily spread that same rot straight into your next healthy division, undoing the entire benefit of having caught the problem in the first place. One more thing worth knowing if you are sharing divisions with another gardener, or moving plants into a brand new bed, invasive jumping worms can hide inside root balls and soil without you ever noticing anything is off. Washing the roots completely bare before replanting, and avoiding any transplanted soil from an unknown source, is a simple, cheap way to protect the rest of your garden from a problem that is genuinely difficult to get rid of once it establishes. None of this takes much extra time once it becomes a habit, and it is a lot easier to check a rhizome while it is already out of the ground in your hands than to try to diagnose a sick plant later, once it has been sitting in the soil for another full season. A few quick things that make the actual digging safer for the plant, regardless of which one you are working on. Work on a cloudy day if you can, never at midday in full sun, since exposed roots dry out within just a few hours otherwise, and that damage happens fast enough that you will not even notice it until it is too late. If the soil is dry going in, water it a day or two ahead of time. That loosens the ground and protects the fine root hairs while you are digging, instead of tearing through them along with everything else. Follow what is sometimes called the wheelbarrow rule. Whatever volume of plant and soil you remove from the ground, replace it with roughly the same volume of good compost or aged organic matter, worked back into the remaining bed. That resets the soil for whatever stays behind, not just for the divisions you are moving elsewhere. If you cannot replant a division right away, keep it shaded and moist in the meantime. Do not let it sit out in the open where the sun and wind can dry it out before you even get to plant it. And if any roots have already dried out a bit, soak them in a bucket of water for about an hour before planting. That is usually enough to bring them back before you put them in the ground. Finally, plant every division at the same depths the original plant was growing at, water it thoroughly right after, and skip the nitrogen fertilizer until next spring. Nitrogen right now just forces soft, weak growth. The plant does not actually need while it is trying to focus its energy on establishing roots. And that soft growth is often the first thing to get damaged if an early cold snap moves in. None of these steps take more than a few extra minutes, but they are the difference between a division that establishes cleanly and one that limps along, sulks for a full season, or does not make it at all. Most failed divisions are not failures of timing, they are failures of these small handling details afterward. Here is the whole video in one fast summary. Right now, divide bearded iris, daylilies, hostas, Siberian iris, coreopsis, and thyme. Wait for peonies specifically until September, and let heuchera wait for cooler fall temperatures too. And never touch anything with a single deep taproot, a woody stem, or a track record of thriving for years without any help at all. It was never really about the calendar month. It is about whether the plant has actually finished its work for the season yet, whether it has stored what it needs, set its buds, and done everything it was going to do before you ask it to survive being cut apart and replanted. Let me know in the comments which of these you are dividing this year, or if you have already learned one of these the hard way, and tell me where you are gardening from too. New research-backed perennial breakdowns go up every week, so subscribe if you do not want to miss the next one. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one, hopefully with a garden bed full of divisions that actually make it through the year.